Question 1. How has school influenced how you approach learning? More specifically, how has school shaped your view of yourself, others, and the world? I think that the school's influence in my approach to the way that I approach my own learning has definitely changed. I think that as I have gone through the system more and been in social justice classes and learning about how these systems of oppression actually work and how they are embedded in our society in such a way that you don't see them, so that they aren't apparent, so that they aren't evident to people. And that has really influenced the way that I approach learning. I feel like I definitely had a very specific way of approaching my own learning for a very long time that I just felt capable of handling on my own. And it wasn't until I got to college and started interacting with social justice minded professors and peers who were in the same groups and interested in the same topics as I was, they could sort of put words to the things that I had been thinking for so long. Looking back, I would say that school has definitely shaped my view of others, but I also think that school has reshaped my view of others and the world several times, because I've had several different experiences with school in different parts of the world and interacted with different people from parts of the world, and that has really shifted my whole view. I feel like I learned more through experience than I did ever sitting through a lecture in high school, which I wish that school had not unknowingly shaped my view so much. I guess I was so unaware of how it was actually shaping my view of people and myself that I didn't really understand the intersectionality of how I would fit into those spaces. I had a lot of questions as I got older, and that is due to adoption and other family things as well. So it's not just education, but the education system didn't pick up in those areas and support me in those areas that I needed, even though my family wasn't aware of those systems. When I think about the Schooling the World movie put out in 2010, I just am more aware of the influence of school and school systems.
Here is a quote from Critical Race Theory and Multicultural Education and the Hidden Curriculum of Hegemony article. It says, more specifically, it consists of the implicit messages given daily to students about socially derived and socially legitimized conceptions of what constitutes valid knowledge and quote-unquote proper behavior, acceptable levels of understanding, differential power, and social evaluation. And this is exactly what I was talking about with the hidden curriculum and intersectionality. All of these things work together in the school system. And another quote from that article says, Why is it that multicultural initiatives get sucked back into the system, preventing them from offering any substantial changes to the current order? And this is that idea, again, of hidden curriculum, and that the people who created the system are never going to be the ones to allow it to be destroyed. And so this is so important when we think about implicit bias, implicit messaging, hidden curriculum, as well as what are the honest causes of the educational debt.
That pressure to conform and to succeed exists all over the world. In one of the interviews in this video, one of the women says, before modern schooling, our education focused on the spiritual teachings, but now the emphasis is on material success. People have to go to school so they can make a lot of money, have a big house, drive a nice car. The whole idea of learning has been turned around to mean, how can I make a lot of money? Question 2. How has your identity influenced how you participate in school and how you view yourself as a student? Did you notice any contradictions between your lived experiences and curriculum materials? That's the way that I choose to identify myself. Those are the things that I want people to know about me, and things that I think that are really vital sort of in my identity and my basis, I guess. Going back to the first question of how school has influenced my approach to learning through the hidden curriculum, I think it also played into my identity as well. I don't think that my identity influenced my participation in school probably up until 7th grade, but there was so much there that was lost that it's not until now, 5 years into college, that I feel like I can actually reflect on all of those experiences properly and understand that the way that I viewed myself as a student didn't really change. I still viewed myself as an active, participating student. I never really felt pushed aside by my school necessarily. And I think about contradictions between my lived experiences and the curriculum materials that I used. I just really want to talk about educational debt again. I want to talk about intersectionality again, especially identity in this moment. These contradictions between lived experiences and curriculum materials were very strange, especially at my high school. Our curriculum materials were hand-me-downs from other schools, and so that really affected the way that we as students sort of like accepted who we were as students, as athletes, as community members, as friends of people from other districts. That intersectionality of who we were as students of that school was really difficult, because a lot of contradictions every single time we read something with Native American history, every time we read something with adoption. I noticed a lot of contradictions. I noticed a lot of contradictions in textbooks. I noticed a lot of contradictions in what I was living, because I knew that these things were happening, but I didn't I wasn't ever being taught about them, and since my lived experiences were so limited due to being adopted in those subjects, it was very hard to be able to come up with a real solid answer to what was going on.
This 4-step process of how textbooks are produced comes from the New York Times article about history textbooks. It talks about hidden curriculum and the fact that it talks about hidden curriculum and compares 2 different history textbooks between California and Texas. It actually talks about more than just 2. Across these states, there are many differences in the textbooks, as well as across the country, there are many differences as well. But this information and this process, I just thought was so interesting to learn and understand.
Question 3. From your perspective, what is the purpose of schooling? And how is your perspective different from that of your teachers, peers, and family?
So, one way that we could define education is based off of this definition that I found in the same hidden curriculum article. It says all students will acquire the knowledge, attitudes, and skills needed to function in an ethnically and racially diverse nation and world. This second definition says to support and subscribe to values, ideas, objectives, cultural and political meanings which bind them to and incorporate them into the prevailing power structure. So in this sense, they're saying that schools are more microcosms of society rather than tools for students and future citizens to be able to acquire knowledge and attitudes in order to function in a healthy way with each other. Rather, instead, this definition focuses on power structures.
I would say for the current schooling system that the purpose of it is simply just easy reproduction, as well as competition, global competition. But what I would like to see the purpose of school changing to would be to give students an educational experience where they can be outside, be themselves, learn to express themselves in different ways. And what we talked about in one of our classes this quarter is that empathy builds into solidarity. And so once you are actually with people and you make a connection, or you're actually physically at a location and you see the thing, you understand it better. And the worst thing I think personally about the current purpose of schooling is that it's just a system of power. It's just a system of money. It's just to reproduce and to recreate the same thing. Just that like factory type education model. This current education system is capitalist imperialism disguised as democracy. And while we're on the subject of democracy for just a second, who said that democracy was the best choice? In the neoliberalism article, they say when we say capitalist imperialism, what we are actually saying is the taking of land, labor, and resources by force for money and power. This is why neoliberalism is a military political economy. The ultimate strategy for the taking of land, labor, and resources by force for money and power is militarism. And these are just the basics of capitalist imperialism. Neoliberalism is a very interesting concept because it is a word that has been thrown around a lot, and I don't think that a lot of people have a very great understanding of what it means. If they hear the word liberal, they automatically assume liberal and left and social justice. They do not think of white supremacy and capitalism and imperialism. And even when people think of the term capitalism, are they actually thinking negative things, or are they just reproducing those thoughts and beliefs that came out of the hidden curriculum that they were exposed to as children? This idea of capitalist imperialism really started September 11th, 1973, when Salvador Allende was overturned by a coup in Chile. The coup was assisted by the US CIA, and the book came out, El Ladrillo. And this book basically was an economic and political model that continues to serve the current political uprisings, as well as is the reason for so many political uprisings around the world. This was really the, like I said, model for capitalist imperialism, was when Allende was overturned in Chile in 1973, which is actually quite interesting to think about where these systems are being birthed and what is the history of those places. As the article continues to say, this is particularly true when it comes to community defending a specific territory that holds an economic interest for governments, financial institutions, and transnational corporations. And why is this so important to Chile? Because of all the mining and water rights issues, and don't even get me started. That's just the beginning. My perspective on schooling is definitely different than my family. However, it's quite difficult to try and explain concepts to them that I have been experiencing, and also learning about when they don't have experience or prior knowledge or prior understanding of any of those concepts at all. So it's really hard for me to take that step with them. I am unaware of the perspective of what the purpose of schooling is from my teachers, but from the experiences that I have had, you can tell what their understanding of what their purpose is there as a teacher by the way they treat you as a student and the way they set up their classroom. So for me, with my lived experiences, I would say that 98% of my teachers and professors so far would say that the purpose of schooling is to be successful and to get a good job and to quote unquote have the dream, build the life for yourself that you want. Basically just reproducing the system over and over again. Question 4. Do you feel social justice was promoted in the schools you attended? Why or why not? I do not feel that social justice was promoted in the schools that I attended. I feel like social justice didn't even exist until I got to college and I understood these concepts. I don't think social justice was promoted in the school because I don't think that social justice was understood in the school, and so it wasn't accepted. And I think that was just also built into that hidden curriculum of the school of these white families.
Even though my education was very one-sided, of course I am forever grateful for these opportunities that I have had, but I also recognize that these opportunities, as we call them, are also just part of the problem. Thinking forward, what is our job as supporters of multicultural education? This quote claims that at the societal level, multicultural education, culturally relevant pedagogy, social justice education, all of those things, the major focus of being more open with your students is to reduce prejudice and discrimination against oppressed groups. It's to work toward equal opportunity and justice for all groups, and especially to implement equitable distribution through these structures of power that we have in education.